Welcome back to Bloomberg Live from Hong Kong.
We talk about the implications for policy,
2% spike on Wall Street could translate to some gains.
Meltdown in the U.S. mortgage market.
State-run refineries amounting to $50 billion.
More than 99% of online
Checking back in on Asian stocks now, which fell today.
Watch Emerging Asia on Bloomberg Television. Getting in early on an emerging investment trend could lead to bigger payouts. Still, bigger rewards can come with bigger risks. How do you spot the latest trends in Asia without a crystal ball? We'll focus on Asia's developing economies, new industries and startup companies every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on Bloomberg Live.
To be spun to our shareholders, which we firmly believed had real value.
You had a committee, the Finance and Risk Management Committee, which I believe was chaired by the once legendary Henry Kaufman. A previous panel said that this committee only met twice a year in 2007 and 2006. Were they giving you advice on these long-term strategic directions?
Let me just clarify one thing, if I may. I believe they did meet twice, 2007, but they met 4 times this year so far. Well, it's over now, so it's 4 times this year.
Were they giving you advice on changing strategic direction for the firm?
We talked about assets, and not just at the Risk and Finance Committees. We talked about it at the board. We talked about how we were bringing down our exposures on residential, and on commercial, and on leveraged loans, and almost at each and every board meeting, whether it was a risk committee or a finance committee, we talked about it. It was clearly a subject on everybody's mind. Keep in mind that this was a board that did have a lot of financial experience.
Welcome to On the Economy. I'm Pim Fox. You are listening to live testimony of the House Oversight Committee. Lehman Brothers Chairman and CEO Richard Fuld has been speaking. We're going to go back to that in just 1 minute, but let me just bring you up to date on where the stocks are trading. Take a look if you can. You can see the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 580 points, the S&P 500 falling more than 68 points, and the NASDAQ lower by 134 points. And if we can see the Dow Jones Industrial Average down below 10,000, trading at 9,743. Now, we obviously are seeing a rally in treasuries, concerns that the global economy could be headed for a recession. Take a look. This is the 10-year note. You can see the price falling and the yield, the yield falling and the price increasing. Let's take a look also, if we can now, at crude oil. Well, there's the crude oil chart trading below $90 a barrel today. This is the lowest level for crude since February. Now, it is not just U.S. stocks that have been falling. The selling in Brazil was so swift and so deep that trading had to be halted twice. Now let's go to Bloomberg's Camila Fontana, because she joins us from the BMF Bovespa in Sao Paulo. Camila?
Hi there, Pim. Here, the Bovespa already, like you said, had 2 circuit breakers today. The first one after only 20 minutes of trading, following a 10% drop. The second circuit breaker was called less than 1 hour after trading resumed, when the Ibovespa sank 15%. Traders are back at work at the moment. The index has a smaller loss, around 12.1%, and the third circuit breaker of the day would only be in effect after a 20% loss. The index is now at levels seen only 2 years ago. And with the outflow of foreign money, the Brazilian currency, the real, hit the lowest level against the dollar since November 2006. The performance of the Brazilian stock market is strongly related to falling commodity prices. Mining giant Vale and state oil company Petrobras make up over 30% of the benchmark index here. And today, UBS cut its profit estimate for Vale by next year by 32%, and the stock has the biggest drop ever. Back to you in New York, Pim.
Thank you very much, Camilla. And now let's go back to the hearing before Henry Waxman, Democrat of California, leading the House Regulatory and Reform Committee. Let's listen into members of the committee. The members of the committee who are questioning Lehman Brothers CEO Dick Fuld.
History. We should learn from it.
You, in your statement, and I quote from it on page 5, you said, "We did everything we could to protect the firm." And so I go back to this memo that Mr. Bishop had up and ask you if you agree with the spirit of the memo. Why did we allow ourselves to be so exposed? Did you ask those questions? Did you reflect that conditions were clearly not sustainable? Did you see warning signs? Did you move fast enough? And I ask that because of two things that have come to my attention. That the Federal Bureau of Investigations has launched preliminary inquiries as to whether or not Lehman or its executives committed fraud by misrepresenting the firm's condition to investors. So, sir, I want to ask you some questions. On September 10th, 5 days before your bankruptcy filing, you and your chief financial officer, Ian Lowett, held a conference call for investors. According to the Wall Street Journal, you were advised by your bankers not to hold this call because there were too many open questions. It's my understanding that at the time you did make the call and that you were frantically trying to raise capital, either through new investors or selling off assets. So when you and Mr. Lowett spoke to your investors and you said that you did not need more capital, and that Mr. Lowett said to investors when asked whether Lehman would need to raise $4 billion, quote, I'm paraphrasing, "We don't feel that we need to raise that extra amount. Our capital position at the moment is strong." So, sir, is this accurate? Were you told not to hold the call? Were you trying to raise capital during the week before you filed bankruptcy? And is it an accurate statement that your capital position was strong on September 10th?
It is correct that our capital position on September 10th was strong.
Did anyone tell you, advise you, against holding the conference call I referred to? That should be a yes or no, sir.
Well, you're asking me, did anyone? I mean,
So that's a pretty big call that was made 5 days before filing bankruptcy, and your chief financial officer was present on the call. I ask you, did any of your outside bankers or other advisors warn you against holding this call?
I had so many conversations. I would never say to you that no one. That
well,
would be
maybe, sir, maybe you'll remember. Were you trying to raise capital during the week before you went bankrupt?
The week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before.
Sir, I asked you a week before.
I'm
just asking you for the week before,
I'm saying yes to all.
You're saying yes to all.
Yes.
And when you were raising that capital, no one in your firm.
I'd like to finish because there's a different piece to that. What we were looking to do was to raise capital after we completed.
You were raising capital.
Excuse me, please. After we completed the spinoff, which would probably have been January, after we had completed the spinoff of the commercial real estate assets. On September 10th, we had a strong capital position. We were trying to anticipate how much capital we were going to put into SpinCo, how much capital we were going to use. We were trying to anticipate how much we would sell the investment management division for. So there were a number of moving pieces. But on September 10th, given the business that we had sufficient and strong capital and liquidity.
Thank you, Mr. Fuld. Thank you, Ms. McCollum. Mr. Van Hollen, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fuld, you said earlier in your testimony that at Lehman Brothers, when things were going well, then people would do well, and when things weren't going so well, then people would have cutbacks. And
Consider 3 ways to boost your investment returns at Interactive Brokers. Minimizing your trading costs with low commissions. Directly accessing 60 markets globally. Controlling your leverage with portfolio margining. Interactive Brokers. Options, stocks, futures, forex, bonds in one account on one screen, worldwide.
You are watching Bloomberg Television.
News is a source of market updates and so on and so forth.
It's very interesting, very informative.
I watch it every day.
There are many information on the television.
Very well presented.
I love Bloomberg.
Definitely one of the more accurate and nonpartisan places to get news and financial information.
Payment. This, the $16.2 million was a contractual obligation that the firm had made to Mr. Savary. I forget when it was, but it was earlier in the year. And that contract said that at any time, if terminated, he was due the items of the contract. So that's what that was. That was not a severance payment, sir.
Regardless of his performance, he would be due that amount of money, is what you're saying?
Unless it was fired for cause.
Let me ask you this. You would agree, would you not, that